I'm going to call the meeting to order. And we do have a quorum. I'm going to call the meeting to order and roll call. So Vice Chair Gordon.
Present.
Commissioner Taylor.
Oh, do you say, I think you said Hiller, sorry, present.
Commissioner Taylor and Commissioner Shen.
Is she here?
Senya.
It looks like her connection froze.
Yeah, frozen.
She may be froze. Well, we do have a quorum. Well, let's move on. One change to the agenda that we have tonight, non-action item 2, we're going to move to next month because I believe there is no movement on that yet, and it's still being worked on. So there'll be no discussion tonight. There'll be no answers really that anybody can give. So we'll move that to next month.
Thank you. That's very thoughtful because I was still looking at the old one.
So oral communications, number 1, we have a new liaison, Mayor Tom Du Bois. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to working with you on our commission.
Yeah, and just like I said in my email, I may not come to every meeting, but if any of you want to reach out to me, please do. That's what I'm here for.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And one other thing with the oral communications, our Form 700 is due. So please get that filed. I got mine filed through my file. So if you have that ability, I think the deadline is April, sometime in April to get that in, but the sooner the better so you don't forget about it because you don't want to get it mixed up with your taxes because that's due about the same time. So I get that done. All right, so the next, and one other thing, the change to the Brown Act, that all votes now have to be done through roll call. So all votes now will be doing through roll call. You have a motion to approve the minutes of November 19th, 2020.
I move that we approve the minutes for November 19th, 2020.
We have a second?
I second.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
I second.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And we'll take a roll call vote. Vice Chair Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes,
Commissioner Sen.
Yes.
Thank you. And I vote yes. So the motion passes. Thank you very much. And staff comments. Elise.
Chair Miyagi, I just have one clarification. We do have 2 attendees here. If either of those attendees would like to speak during oral communications, could you please raise your virtual hand? I'm seeing no hands, Chair Miyagi. And then for staff comments, Nadia, if you'll pull up the eye candy, we have some really great updates for you this evening. So for the ArtLift micro grants and our upcoming temporary murals. So as you all recall, the ArtLift micro grants are very small grant opportunities for our creatives in Palo Alto to both animate our commercial corridors and help people in the communities and the neighborhoods find connection in this time of social isolation. So currently, we've held 2 review panels. As you may recall, we are reviewing these on a monthly basis, seeing which new applications come in. Sometimes projects that were not successful with their first application may make amendments to the second round and then come back to reapply. So we have 36 applications received to date. 10 applications are already approved and moving forward, and we have 10 that are pending approval. So staff is working out details on those projects. And tonight we wanted to give you just a sneak peek, a little taste of a few of those projects moving forward so you get a sense of what's to come. So on the far left, you may have noticed if you've been on California Avenue, the non-slip yellow brick road, which was installed by Jessica Roth, who is one of the owners of the cobblery. She has put together a proposal that would be much broader than simply in front of her business, for uplifting sayings to be on the sidewalk. It would not be in the roadway, especially while the road is open to traffic. The second one is an artist, local artist Priyanka Rana, who is just given a nice profile in Content Magazine. And she creates these small scale sculptures created from donated toys. So she is going to install a small piece in Johnson Park after having a small call to the neighborhood children to donate small figurines that she'll incorporate into the sculpture, so they can go look for the piece there. And then on the right, the proposal by Daniel Tran is a series of very lightweight suspended sculptures that I believe we're looking at 6 to 7 that would be installed throughout a park along a pathway. All of these projects are intended to be very temporary, easily reversible, and will only be in place for probably a matter of weeks to a couple of months. Next slide, please. The next one, going from left to right, is a project by Susan Mead. This is one where she came with one original project proposal, and then based on the input from the panel, really expanded it. So she's going to leave original artworks and reproductions of some original artworks that are postcard size throughout various neighborhoods throughout Palo Alto, with this messaging on the back for people to collect, take home, and post on social media, so we can track how many people have received these gifts of artwork. We also have a project for a community piano, Arunam Agarwal, and it's a collaborative with a number of high school students. He's been in the process of restoring this old piano during COVID, and the funding will allow him to complete the restoration of the piano and do a collaborative painting project with a number of other students. And when the time comes, be able to make it available for the public to play in a public space. And then on the bottom right, there is a project for social distance stools that are small sculptures made by CASP artist Tara De La Garza. So that's just a little taste of the kinds of projects that are coming down the pipeline through the micro grants. The next panel meeting will take place in February. We haven't quite landed it yet, but it is on our public art page under artist opportunities. So feel free to pass it along to all of your creative friends and neighbors. So the next update we have, and the image to the left is not one of our upcoming murals, just to be clear, is for the temporary murals project. As much as I actually think the image would be wonderful, but it's not ours. So the temporary murals vision and goals, again, really trying to help support the Uplift Local initiatives, bringing more vibrancy to our commercial corridors. So for this pilot project, the commission had allocated funding appropriate for 4 projects in the Cal-Ave district and 4 in the University Avenue district. The selection panel ranked a lot of applicants and commissioned the first 8. So these are the names of the artists and where they're going. The top grouping, of course, is in the University Avenue district, the downtown district. And then the bottom 4 are for the California Avenue district. Unexpectedly, it was a bit of a challenge to find property owners who wanted to be host sites for these projects. But as you will see in a moment, we're going to give you, we don't have all of the images in yet, but we're going to give you a little sneak peek on those too. We believe that once these get installed in February, that hopefully more building owners will come to us hoping to get a mural. And we do have all those artists who applied the first time and they're ranked. So we would come back to the commission to ask for additional funds and be able to work our way down the list to commission the next up. And as a reminder, these artworks are going to be printed on aluminum, which is completely recyclable at the end. They're intended to be in place for a period of months up to 1 year. And they can be installed on glass, so they could be appropriate for an empty storefront as well as a wall surface. So with that, Here's the first piece by Robin Apple. And this was a piece, she is a Palo Alto based artist who does iPhone collage photography. And these were all images taken primarily in the Baylands. Next slide. This piece will be on the site of Bell's Books. This is by the artist duo TW5. This piece will actually be on City Hall Plaza on the back of the elevator bank facing Ramona. And this is artist Catherine Liu, and this would be her first public artwork. This is Damon Bellinger, who has created this very whimsical piece that will go on California Avenue in one of the alleyways. And this you get to see sort of what it will look like. Again, it's like a digital sketch, so don't take the details too much to heart at this point. But this is Elizabeth Hickok's artwork, and there will be an augmented reality portion to it. So each of these will have a little bit of signage identifying it as a city project and links to more information. But additionally, this one will allow you to bring up an app on your phone. So you'll see another overlay where the mural will actually move through a digital format. And I think that's all we have for staff comments and updates this evening.
Thank you, Elise. And as I said, I sat on that micrograms panel, and that was really, really good. There's a lot of good projects and coming from a lot of different people. So I'm looking forward to these being implemented. All right, so now let's get into the non-action items. The first one is the Cal Ave master plan.
Wonderful. So as you all recall, just for a little bit of background, the 2016 Public Art Master Plan set as one of the priorities to create a district-specific master plan for California Avenue because it is so unique and is undergoing quite a bit of change. And the larger master plan didn't allow us to get into that level of detail. So at our 2019 September retreat, the commission put this on the priority list for the next year. And so in early 2020, we put out the call, and we now have a draft plan here. And hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. We wanted to give the commission a chance to discuss it a little bit and give some feedback for staff to synthesize, to give back to the consultants so that they can come back with a finalized draft in the next month or two. So with that, I turn it over to the commissioners for discussion or any questions you may have.
Hey, thank you, Elise. Any questions on this master plan? From, I think it's Barbara Goldstein and Associates.
I don't have any questions, but I do have some positive comments. I really enjoyed reading it. And I really liked the light, the ideas about lighting. And I really enjoyed too that they're thinking of things that are not just murals. Because I think we've murals, they're still resonant to everybody. People still do like murals, but I think we should do some different things. And I think that's a really interesting idea. And I think there were in like music and tying and history. And so I'm really excited about the proposals that hopefully we'll get soon of art. And I also love the idea of just going local and regional. I think is a great thing for us to focus on as a commission, and just supporting our local artists and giving back in some way to our community.
I agree with you. I think murals have they had their heyday, and let's move on from those to something. I think murals are really good, and they're really good for temporary art, but let's move on. There's other things that we can do. Hey, any other comments?
Unless it's murals with augmented reality, right, which updates it.
I think that that's really interesting too. And the fact that it will be on Cal Ave at Izzy's it's appropriate. What I found interesting about this report is they had several focus groups, and what I really enjoyed was each focus group had something different they were looking for, but they each had some crossover as well. You know, the artists were looking for murals and light projects and temporary exhibits. The city was looking for a placemaking, you know, for art to bring placemaking and pedestrian traffic. Of course, the businesses were also looking for art to bring people in and to make the street Cal Ave a destination. And then the public was saying, we want a lot of different types of art, and we also really want to support local artists. So even though everybody had their own interests and their own goals, there was a lot of crossover for the interest groups. And I just thought, as usual, the team did a great job writing this report and making recommendations. So I was excited to read it.
Thank you, Lauren. Senya, any comments?
Yeah, I really appreciate that they took perspectives from different stakeholders because it's obviously public art by nature has a lot of different constituents. And I appreciated that they went in to address the concerns and the orientations of the different groups.
Thank you, Senya. And I agree. I think getting input from all the stakeholders is very important to do a master plan like this and to get the buy-in from everybody to do the plan. Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions or comments about the Cal Ave master plan? It's going to be a pretty ambitious plan.
Yeah, I think council will be excited about it. It looks really cool. I did look at the staff report, and there did used to be a very active music scene there. I don't know if you guys talked about that. It would have been cool to see some music-related things there as well.
One
Right, thank you.
thing, the report addressing that music question, one thing the report brought up was the train station and the plaza there, where we do have a beautiful fountain that has just been restored, but putting maybe a stage there for different types of artists to come through. And because the Cal Ave businesses are very interested in being the avenue of the arts, I think that music could be a focus again there. So.
One other question I have is there a timeline for the street opening again that we need to be thinking about? Because, you know, I think that it's lovely that it's currently closed, but there will be a time when I think it's going to need to be open in some capacity. So I was just curious if there's discussion about that and what that looks like. And also University Ave too.
Absolutely. So good question. The streets are actually open to vehicular traffic currently, since the outdoor dining had to be shut down. So I suspect that once outdoor dining is allowed again, that will be revisited. My understanding was that they were looking to close the streets again, but I haven't heard anything concrete. But they are open to vehicular traffic currently.
Hey, thank you, Elise. Any other questions or comments? I'm really looking forward to this plan. I think it's going to be really good for Cal Ave, and everything's going to happen. And once this pandemic is over, you know, let's go full throttle and get this done. So I'm really looking forward to this. All right, thank you, everyone. Any other comments or questions?
I was just going to add one thing. So if there are any additional comments or specific wordsmithing you would like us to submit for feedback back to the consultants, please just send it to Nadia or myself. Preferably by the end of day Monday would be wonderful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Elise. All right, the next action item 2, we've moved to next month. And action item 3 is the Race and Equity Public Art that is referred to us by the City Council. And Elise.
Wonderful, thank you. So as you all recall, in November, the City Council had directed the Art Commission to consider the commission of an artwork, a permanent artwork on King Plaza that would demonstrate the city's commitment to racial equity. We did have a conversation later that same month in which we discussed some of the opportunities and limitations that the King Plaza site holds. And so I'll run back through some of those just as a little refresher. Slide, please. So there's the plaza. I kind of miss it. It's been a while. we go to check on the temporary artwork. The labyrinth is currently there. But you all are very familiar with the site. The hardscape cannot be perforated or anchored into. Thank you. And there's strict weight limit of 100 pounds per square foot. So these are things that we navigate with the temporary public art program now. And the plaza tends to slope. The image you're looking at, let me just clarify really briefly. To the far left is Hamilton Avenue. The large circle in the middle is what used to be the fountain. It is a planter. The 2 blocks of 8 circles are the 8 magnolia trees in both of the planters flanking the planter. And then off screen to the right would be the entrance to City Hall, just to orient you briefly. So as we're looking at this, from City Hall's front doors down past the flagpoles to Hamilton Avenue, the entire thing slopes down that way. And it also slopes slightly side to side to away from the fountain toward the planters. So, so it is a bit of an uneven surface, but we were able to work with Public Works and talk about what could be some of the possible opportunities for integration of artwork. And so looking at, slide please. So looking at the possibility of the facade of City Hall. So to your left, you'll see a banner that was put up several years ago for the 50th anniversary for Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. We have been able to ascertain that the threading for that hardware was left in the facade, so it exists there. So the hardware could be put back in place and the whole piece could be recabled without having to puncture new holes into the facade of the building. And we do have estimates on what it would cost to recable it, as well as if we were to print artwork in a banner format that could be changed out there. So that could be one option, is having a permanent platform for rotating temporary public art. To the right, you may remember Bruce Beasley's piece that we did have in the planter. The planter could be used. It also has to abide by certain weight limitations. In fact, underneath the soil, there's a lot of lightweight fill in order to keep the weight down in there. We have been able to successfully place sculpture there, but it is a little bit tricky. Next slide, please. Other options, to the left, you can see the elevator well that does have the plaque commemorating King Plaza for the Kings. The elevator shaft on the opposite side, on the Ramona side of the street, is blank. That could potentially be painted in some way if we were to want to utilize that as a canvas or a platform. And then on the right, just a quick reminder of the space between the magnolia trees. That planter, those trees are surprisingly big, and the roots are very shallow and entangled, but there is space there. We would have to, again, work with some depth and weight challenges there, but it is an option. So there are a few potential paths. I was hoping to get some feedback from the commission this evening on. So the placement of, do we want to go the direction of a permanent work? It would most likely be a sculptural work, or creating more of a permanent platform for ongoing rotating artworks that would address race inequity. And that could take the place of, for instance, a banner style artwork, an artwork that could be created and then reproduced in that way and, you know, on exhibit for 6 months to a year and then changed out. Or it could potentially be a repositioning of our current temporary public art program where we have ongoing rotating projects on King Plaza, but perhaps we make the focus of those about racial equity. So in consideration for a permanent artwork, thinking about some of the pros and cons, and certainly we may come up with more in our discussions this evening. Some of the pros are that it would be a one-time commission. It could be an opportunity to engage a really prominent artist to do something important and exciting. Of course, some of the cons are the logistics of the King Plaza placement, because it does limit what kind of artwork could be there as far as placement, anchoring. Certainly when something's placed on a permanent basis, it has to go through a much more rigorous sort of engineering anchoring process than the temporary projects can. Also thinking about at a time when public art programs across the country are looking at their collection and and evaluating monuments and permanent artworks in their collection, thinking about relevance. If we commission one project, how do we make sure that it doesn't just become a single gesture project and then it's one and done? And that is a conversation that's not just taking place here, but many cities are struggling with the same question. In fact, Redwood City is in the same place we are in talking about a race and equity artwork. Long-term maintenance and considerations, of course. And if we were to commission a permanent artwork on King Plaza, that would likely mean that we would have to cease the ongoing rotating, the temporary public art program, which has been very popular. Slide, please. So in thinking about having a permanent platform for temporary artwork, some of the pros and cons we came up with. So the cons for that would be ongoing staff and cost commitment. So that would take, staff time, bandwidth, and funding on an ongoing basis, and also short-term maintenance. So permanent artworks and temporary artworks both have maintenance considerations. Usually the temporary ones, because of the anchoring challenges, we do have to check on them periodically. There are some challenges there that can be specific to the temporary work. Some of the pros could be that there are a diversity of artistic voices and perspectives that, that we would be inviting to Palo Alto. Ongoing engagement with the Palo Alto community, the ability to commission relevant, impactful, and meaningful artwork, and the potential to co-program along with the King Plaza temporary project. So, and that's really just applying if we determined that a banner format was the direction that the commission wants to go, we could potentially consider whether or not we continue the temporary public art program in addition to the racial equity projects. And certainly, a lot of what we heard from the commission in the November meeting over and over again was that, we really need to make sure that what we create is meaningful and that we get adequate community feedback. I don't know if any of you had a chance to listen to the study session with the council and the HRC on Tuesday evening. If you did not, I'd encourage you to give it a listen. It was really impactful, and it maps out a path forward in the recommendations to engage the community in more broad conversations about race and equity within the city. So in thinking about our project and commissioning an artwork, looking at the banner format, for the first time re-rigging everything and printing an artwork would be about $13,000 to $14,000. And then from there forward, replacing the artwork would be about $8,000 to $9,000 per. So that's, certainly aligned with the cost that we have for our temporary public art program. But the piece that that we wanted to put forward for the commission to consider additionally is that if the commission wants to pursue this temporary program, that some of that community outreach could be like a mini residency, an artist in residence, so that the artist, as part of their artist fee, would pay them to have more in-depth engagement with the community. They would have the opportunity to perhaps engage the community in the creation of an artwork that could be thematic. So it could be about race and equity and housing in Palo Alto. It could be about race and equity and transportation in Palo Alto. So there could be a way to ensure that that outreach is built into the budget for each of these commissions. And so that's another piece that we wanted to get feedback from the commission on this evening. So in thinking about the current temporary public art program, so right now we still have the Labyrinth up. Arbor by Adam Marcus is the next one that's scheduled. So he's working on fabrication now. There was another artist who was approved but has not fabricated, is not under contract, and we've told him to please hold until we determine which direction this racial equity artwork might go. And so we wanted to get some feedback from the commission this evening on what's the feeling on the support for either a permanent artwork or a platform for ongoing rotating artworks, the fate of the temporary art program that exists there, or should we consider pivoting that to have a racial equity focus? Thinking about this aspect of having an artist residency aspect to any of these projects, since the outreach will of course be very important to the success of the artwork and the relevance to this community. And also about next steps in outreach and your thoughts on that. And so with that, I turn it over to you for discussion and questions.
Hey, thank you, Elisa. It's very good insights into that. And to touch on something that Elise said, Redwood City, Contra Costa County, other areas are really wrestling with this equity question. The California Arts Council, one of the questions they ask in their grant, your grant application, is about racial equity and what are you doing about it? So it's a big question now, and I think it's something that Palo Alto is kind of leading the way by doing this right now. So I think it's a good discussion. And what I'd like to do is do the discussion in three parts. First about the permanent piece, and then temporary pieces, and then possibly a third, mixing both temporary for the equity part of it, along with the temporary public art program we have going on in the plaza right now. So why don't we start with the permanent program, permanent piece to be installed, and within mind that there are weight limitations. I'm not sure what the weight limitations on the fountain are. And are there weight limitations on either side where the trees are as well?
Well, the weight limitations apply all across the plaza,
Okay.
because the plaza is all over the parking structure.
Okay, all right.
So while the area where the previous fountain was, it is slightly more reinforced. So it can take a little bit more than the 100 pounds per square foot. I was given a rough estimate of 125 pounds per square foot. So it doesn't give us a lot more leeway, but there is a small amount there.
Thank you. And 100 pounds per square foot doesn't sound like a lot. So keep that in mind. So any comments or questions about the first part about a permanent sculpture or piece of artwork in the plaza?
I am not in favor of it. That is my my answer. I don't think I think it can be stale. It can, and especially right now, it is going to be stale. Probably in 2 days it could be stale. I mean, I'm just using that as a and I've seen a lot of permanent pieces that just, unless we had a deaccession policy that would enable us to deaccession it if there was an issue, I don't think there's any way that it's gonna help the mission of what we're trying to do. I will also just say that one of the things, and I mentioned this at our last meeting, that and this has to do with both a permanent and a temporary pieces, is that I still feel that we don't know where we're going. And I think, and it's not the art commission, I think as a city, and I think it really has to be an umbrella kind of discussion. And I think that we are moving a little too fast. And I feel like we don't have enough, I was going to use the word knowledge, and I'll use the word knowledge, but I don't think there's enough of commitment from the city council. Tom, I know you're here, and some other people in the city in terms of making sure that whatever we do, they're going to back us up. And there has been issues I know that have come about. And I just want to make sure that whatever we do, whatever decision we make, that there is from the top down support. And I'm not sure we're there yet. The second thing I was going to also mention is if we do even a permanent or temporary, I know we can't prohibit people from applying, but I don't know if there is a way that we could find a way to get people who are in Palo Alto to participate. I really feel like, and I really don't feel comfortable having these discussions and not having artists who go through these issues and are dealing with these issues being outside of the city. I think it defeats the purpose. I don't know, again, the decision from the city council, I briefly listened to it, but as to what that's entailing, because I think in the Human Rights Commission, but the Human
Resources.
thank you. It's the late in the night. Resources, it was very clear that from them that there's a lot of issues going on in the city that are not being addressed, and that there's no way that somebody from outside the city, and I know even people in the city have different perspectives, but I think if this is about how we as a city deal with issues, we need to let the people in this city promote those and talk about those issues. It should not be from people from outside the city, unless there's a connection that we could find. So that's an issue, because I know we have to be careful as a city entity, but I also feel very conflicted right now based on what I think is an ethical right thing for us to be thinking about and doing, and what is possible, not possible. So I'm going to stop there.
All right. Thank you, Nia. Very good input. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
I absolutely second Neil's sentiments about staleness and also commitment from the city council. And lastly, I really like the combination of the temporary installments, supporting it maybe from a mission standpoint, promoting the idea from a mission standpoint, and then maybe lastly to continue to create a room for temporary installations that are not necessarily tied to racial justice. So continue to have a space that foster temporary installations that may be, sort of have alternate mandates. So that will be my comments.
Thanks, Cynthia. Lauren, any comments?
I'm sorry, Ben, did you speak?
Lauren, any comments?
Yes, I do have some comments. The city council has asked us to address cultural, racial, and social equity on King Plaza. We have over the years discussed the importance of a permanent artwork, maybe a destination piece, and that would be fantastic, but that is not the answer for this installation. After listening to the findings of the HR is it HRB or HRC? There's boards, there's commissions, the Human Resources Board. Then they said their recommendation was to form 100 community groups to discuss race and belonging. And they asked for Palo Alto to be a model for diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. We can really play a role here and install some great works there. And also by forming these, well, I'm a big fan of artists in residence. So by having an artist in residence come and reach out to the community and be a part of these community groups and then come up with a plan, I just think that would be wonderful. So I am, along with everyone else, no permanent artwork. It would go stale quickly. Let's go with the temporary artwork on the plaza.
Thank you, Lauren. And I agree with everyone about not having permanent art sculpture. You may get a big name, but that's all you're going to get. And I always think of O.J. Simpson and what happened with him. So you get a big name, and later on something happens, and then you really got a piece of artwork that nobody wants. So, Mr. Mayor, do you have any comments on this?
So again, as a liaison, I'm here to represent council, not my own views. I think council had a short discussion and just a couple of thoughts. I mean, I respect what you guys are saying about not wanting a permanent exhibit. A lot of people don't know that King Plaza is named after Martin Luther King and Coretta King.
Right.
And so I think council was interested in somehow tying the name of the plaza to make people realize that's actually, it's named after both of them. And other than that, I do think, and it's maybe in conflict with where you guys want to go, the controversy we had over the mural on the street, with our own police force and residents and things, it created a lot of discussion, but and maybe, I don't know if that's what you were trying to get at, Nia, when you were talking about maybe more Palo Alto artists, but I would like this to be something positive and not create more antagonism in the community personally. So hope that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. And we did have a discussion about, there is a small plaque on one of the elevator shafts that names the plaza after the Kings. We did have a short discussion about having something that would be more meaningful about the plaza and the naming of the plaza. So, to include that as part of that as well. Right, so
has there ever been an article, and I'm just saying, or like an online thing about the King Plaza and what it stands for and why it's, because I'm even just thinking that's like even a basic thing that of just communicating.
I think I did read something about that after the BLM mural went up. There was some discussion about that.
Okay.
It was
I
in
missed it.
an article about the mural. They said, oh, and it's in front of, if I recall, Ben, I'm kind of like you, there was a lot written about that, but I think I recall them saying, oh, and it runs in front of King Plaza, which represents.
Okay, then I missed that.
It was just a short blurb, so not
It
much.
wasn't a big
Yeah.
piece.
And I think also I will comment and say that one of the things I love about art is that it should be ever changing with the times. And I think it's one of those things that I'm not saying this is going to happen, because I don't think it's ever going to happen where people are just going to be, coexisting and constantly holding hands. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I will say that no matter, there's always going to be new challenges that come up. And so I think it's one of those things that I want us to set kind of a platform of discussion. And I think it's something that just has to be done. And so it's gonna take time, and there'll be new commissioners after us who are gonna have other visions and other things to deal with. But I think just the fact that we're even doing this. And then again, too, the city council, that making sure that they have a strong vision of what it entails, because just saying we want to have a piece of work of art or pieces of art on King Plaza, you need to stand by it and stand behind it and explain what it is and why it's meaningful. And, and the same with the Kings. I love the Kings. There's a lot of really great pieces honoring the Kings. But I think it's relevant word in a lot of places. I'm not sure if it's as relevant in the city of Palo Alto in terms of their legacy in Palo Alto. So it's something to think about.
Thank you, Nia. And to your point about art, it should inspire us. It should make us think, should cause discussion, all that, whether it be negative or positive. It should do that for us. All right, so now let's discuss.
Sorry, Ben, I just have one other quick question.
Sure.
Why members of the city council and the city staff are here. Is there, I think we have funding in the public art program, but I also feel like there should be funding from other places within the city. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that entails, but I feel like there should be something. And I don't know if it's, I don't know what it is. I'm just going to put it out there. And just thinking about that if we decide, like I was saying, Lauren, I love the artist in residency kind of idea. And I'm wondering, that there are other departments in the city that maybe could tie into that and help support that. And it might be financially. And then I don't know if there are, because we're not going to use this money, obviously, private art and public art and private development money. I don't think that's going to work unless there are people who are creating buildings and they say, look, we really love what you're doing and we want to support and allocate money towards that. So just food for thought. And then I'm going to.
I appreciate that. I think one thing, HRC, it's possible that maybe human resources, if they are interested in a community group, an artist leading one of their community groups, maybe some funding from them. But I also think for this, we may have some in lieu funds. Elise, I don't know if that would be true. And then depending what we do with our temporary budget, if we decide to do both temporary and this artwork, or if we decide to replace, then we might have funding for that too. Elise, is that correct?
So yes, there are multiple things at play here. So Commissioner Taylor brought up the artist residency and the potential of cost sharing. And we've certainly seen that model for a true artist residency where an artist is expected to come to the city on a part-time basis for a number of months and then create an artwork generated on that experience. Usually it's primarily funded from the public art program and some from the host city, depending on what the scope of work is. So that I would think that might be a separate item than what we've discussed this evening, but that model definitely exists and is something if we wanted to identify departments who would like to be a host. Like there are a lot of logistics we would have to put together to have a true artist residency. So that's one item. The other item is Commissioner Gordon or Vice Chair Gordon is correct. We do have the private development in lieu fees, and the way that language is written, we can use it for temporary projects. We can use it. We have some pretty broad leeway as to how we could use it. So that could potentially be a funding stream for this either kind of residency in general or for the racial equity project. The Human Relations Commission does not have, from my understanding, and CSD Director Kristen O'Kane is here and can jump in, but my understanding is, they do not have a lot of funding for something like this. A lot of their funding is is tied up and they, you know, they don't have, you know, like our private development funding stream kind of thing that we are fortunate enough to have. So, so I think that's something to consider. We could certainly approach them with some of the community outreach to see if they might be interested in having an artist involved. And here's Director Kristen O'Kane. You want to jump in?
Well, I just wanted to, since you mentioned me, thought I should show my face on camera. But no, I don't really have more to add on that. I think the artist in residency idea is a really interesting one. And when Elise, you had mentioned that to me in the past and gave me some resources to look at in other cities, I mean, it does, I could see how it would have a place in Palo Alto and be useful. And again, you know, right now, just given the, you know, other financial needs of the city, and it may not be a good time for that. But, you know, and I've mentioned it to Ed Shikata as well and shared some of those resources with him. So I think it is something that is of interest for sure, just not sure that now is the time.
I wanted to just supplement some thoughts. One is I just want to highlight my support for Lauren's comment about artists in residency. I think you know, bringing more voice to the community is always a wonderful thing. And second thing is I want to address Tom's comment about some of the negativity and or negative reactions that have surfaced in the mural. I think that it generally, sort of just to frame the context a little bit, a lot of the temporary artwork that's in front of King Plaza is actually reviewed and selected through a very, you know, we generally have the luxury of time to go through a selection process for, even though they're temporary art installations. And I think through that process, it generally gives a little more time and space consideration for the projects that are selected for temporary artwork. And so whether positive or negative, in terms of feedback and reaction, I think we generally have a little more space and time to consider them and for them to surface as part of the selection process. So I just want to make sure we highlight that for your consideration.
Thank you, Cynthia. One other thing, Lauren, do you have a comment?
No, I was just
Oh,
agreeing with
okay.
her that I remember now how that quickly BLM came together and how much freedom they had in creating those letters. So thank you, Cynthia, for bringing that up.
All right, so one other thing about a permanent piece in the plaza are the elevator shafts. Now, is that a possibility? I think painting them or something, or even doing something with the King name on them, something like that. Is that a possibility that that maybe that can be done as part of this, not being the main feature, but a part of it, the elevator shafts?
So that is one of the options that we had brought forward in November for the commission to consider. The elevator shaft that has the plaque for the Kings on it, as you may recall, it has all of the boxes for the meeting notices on the other side. So that one has limited space. It's really that space with the plaque. Although something could potentially be commissioned to highlight and draw people's eyes to the plaque because it just kind of disappears in its current configuration. So that could be considered. I'm not clear because of the historic nature of the architecture, if we might run into some challenges there with painting those or not. That would be something staff would have to go investigate. But the opposite elevator shaft has a lot more space on it. So in fact, that's where one of our temporary murals is going to go, facing Ramona. And then there's an elevator door that is not functioning. It's just blank. And there is a small plaque because there is a time capsule that that is in that shaft. So that is a shaft that has a lot more space. We could potentially consider relocating the plaque. And again, I would have to check with a lot of other colleagues and departments, but we could consider relocating the plaque to the other shaft and perhaps have something painted that is aligned with that so that people would go investigate it, maybe having something painted that having to do with the Kings. So that could be an option, certainly.
Elise,
great.
can it, so it can be, the plaque has the possibility of being removed, is that what you're saying, and moved somewhere else?
Well, I was just saying if the commission was interested in exploring having it moved to the other elevator shaft, there's more space there to have something painted
So
than
it
just
could be,
restricted to that one wall.
so it's not, what you're saying, it's not permanent. It could be moved, that the plaque.
We would
Right,
have
it's
to
not-
look into it. I assume it can be. I assume it's bolted into the wall somehow, and we'd have to look into that. But
Right.
I assume it can be moved.
Okay, because I do want to just add one more 2 cents, is that I don't think it's a very appropriate place for the plaque to be to begin with. And I don't think it should be at another shaft. I think they deserve more prominence. And if we really care about them and what their legacy is, they should be somewhere visible and not stuck on the side of a shaft. I think it's I was going to say the expression, it's a slap in the face, and I really feel it is.
Mhm.
So,
I totally agree. I was wondering if we can somehow find rooms for it, maybe in the common meeting room, where we usually, once a year we go to the meeting room. And I think that's a wonderful space.
Thank you, everyone, for those comments. Yeah, let's move along to the temporary part. First part, let's talk about mural. The mural, as the hardware is in place to do that. And any comments about having a mural type of temporary art that goes up in the plaza? Okay, well, I'll start off. I think, like I said earlier, I think murals have probably gone past their heyday, and it is a good way for temporary art to get it up for a couple of months and get it up and then put something else up in its place. But I don't know if that's really what we want to do there. So any other comments? We could possibly put some sort of a platform in the fountain, or even platforms on either side where the trees are, to place temporary public art. Any comments about that or the murals? Lauren?
Okay, so temporary artwork is temporary. So what's so great about that is when we just saw the photo of Martin Luther King, huge banner on the side of the building, right? That really made an impact, and people saw it and they could see it from the road and across the street. So I like that we have the facade of the building is prepared to take a banner. Do I want a banner from every artist that gets the commission for that temporary artwork? No, but I like that we have that option. And so I think if we do go with temporary versus permanent, we could have a banner for 12 months, and then we might have something interactive in a different part of King Plaza the next 12 months. So I just think it's great because we're going with, or maybe going with temporary and have different things. That's just my input.
So
Lauren?
Commissioner Gordon, may I just
I
ask?
agree with Lauren.
So Commissioner Gordon, you're essentially, I just want to make sure I have it right, saying that the banner could be used as an additional platform, just like our normal temporary public art goes throughout the plaza, but consider using the banner as an additional option. Is that correct?
Well, no, whoever, the artist that is awarded this temporary commission, and if they decide I'm going to do a banner, then that's the temporary artwork for that 12 months or however long we do it. I don't think we would have to have another artwork on the plaza. I don't think we'd have to have concurrent projects going. Is that your question? Okay.
You know, Lauren, I was thinking about what you've said, and I like it, but I'm also wondering, we are focusing a lot on King Plaza, and there are a lot of people, including myself, who don't go to King Plaza that often anymore for a variety of reasons, and especially now, a lot of people pay their bills online; they don't go in. A lot of staff work there, but I'm wondering if maybe there is some thought, and this is where I think the artist in residency could be an interesting idea or platform, but to intersperse the art in the community and not have it just be in one place. And so maybe the other thought I had is if we wanted to do, if there was enough funding, well, we could do like a more, taking out the race and equity, but we could, some fun whimsical pieces that could be in the plaza, but then things about racial and equity could be more spread out and dispersed. Like I just thought of, I had the TV on in front of me, and I see a bus, and I'm like, oh, you know, if we worked at the transportation department, maybe they'd like to do some sort of like banners on their buses or things like that, or some interactive. And so that's my other 2 cents in there.
I love that. And I agree with you. What I understood was the call from the city council was something on King Plaza. Am I incorrect on that?
No, that was the direction.
So then we could keep the temporary program, put the temporary program on buses and other outlets throughout the city, and then address the cultural, racial, social equity that we've been asked to address on King Plaza.
Do we have to do that though? Because I
don't know.
I have concerns. I mean, I do have concerns about it, and I think it is a and I'm also going to speak. I haven't had issues, fortunately, but I don't know if a lot of people feel that the city hall is a safe space either. So I'm wondering too, what does that mean? And so just something to think about. I'm wondering if we can push back a little too.
Couple of comments on that. King Plaza as a location, I think maybe the idea is we wanted to have King Plaza as a location because we think that's the seat of Palo Alto, and we want Palo Alto to make an affirmative statement about racial justice. And so a couple comments on that. I really like the idea of having a place for mural in terms of, I kind of think of it as a stage. And I wonder if there's any way we can make it so that the size of it is flexible. So today they put up something that's of certain size. Maybe the next time someone has a 2-dimensional idea of some type of graphic art, then it's of a different size that we can accommodate. Lastly, picking up on what Nia was saying, not a lot of people go to King Plaza. And I wonder if the temporary artwork or permanent artwork, whatever, but if in terms of temporary artwork, can we have that maybe a photographic part of that being rendered maybe on the Palo Alto City website? So an extension of the King Plaza on the website and have a representative of that artwork there, so to remind people and so that people are exposed to that as a concept.
Thank you. Any other comments? All good comments. I agree with that. I like the idea of the artist being able to pick out if they want to put up a mural, let them put up the mural. We've got the ability to do that, or if they want to do something in the plaza, go ahead and do that. I think it should have some flexibility. And I think as somebody said, I don't think I want to see a mural up there 24/7, 365. And there's a parking garage there. So a lot of people park there to go downtown. And you see, in our meetings, when we did have our meetings, you always see people going in and out of the lobby there, going down to the parking garage. So there is a lot of foot traffic that goes through there. So I think that's a good place to have something like that. I also like the idea of maybe moving the temporary public art out to someplace else. Buses might be a good idea. Bus stops might be another place to do that. But then you have other agencies. You got VTA, possibly Caltrans. Caltrain and that sort of stuff involved to do that sort of stuff. But I think that's really good thinking about how to move this, to get the art out into the neighborhoods and out in other parts of town. So I like everything that we've talked about. And the other thing now is the artists in residence. I think we touched on that a little bit. And another thought too is I think we've kind of gotten away from the idea of having the temporary public art program and the equity program in King Plaza at the same time. I think one detracts from the other, I think is what I heard. So now with the artists in residence program, which I like, I think it's a good idea. It's a good focus for that. Any comments or thoughts about that?
Just back to the point that we're trying to engage our community. And I also think, you think artists in residency, and you do kind of the warning goes off cost, but they don't have to spend a ton of time here. I was thinking about the two artists that came and were in different locations for Palo Alto and inviting citizens and visitors of Palo Alto to make art. Can you at least remind me of the names of those two artists that had the cart that went around and we worked with them? And weren't they essentially artists in residence? I don't know.
In a matter of speaking, yes, they did. They did engage with a lot of citizens about to gather feedback on the future of public art in Palo Alto. They really helped us get a lot of feedback from the community for the public art master plan. Some of the models we've been looking at are, for instance, Boston has a really robust artist in residency program. It's sort of on par with, what we end up spending on temporary public art. So it's, $30,000 for the residency, $10,000 for the fabrication of an artwork at the conclusion of that. Now, that being said, frequently the artwork is an indoor, displayed in an indoor type gallery space. But in this kind of scenario, if that artwork was going to be, could be photographed and reproduced and placed in a banner format, it could be, changed out somehow. So those are all things that could be considered. The other idea is, or the other thing I wanted to bring up is Watershed Sculpture, who were artists and residents out at Bixby Park for many, many weekends, building the foraging island and engaging with hundreds of community members about what they were doing, how the artwork could help hopefully attract the burrowing owl back and other creatures that we wanted to encourage. And so there are different kinds of manifestations for artist residencies. So depending on the intensity, what the deliverables are, we could come up with a potential model for what that could look like.
Thank you, Elise. Any other comments or questions about this? And I think the direction we're seeing, that I'm seeing, is that we want something temporary in the plaza, possibly a mixture of murals or other projects, whatever the artist comes up with, and then moving the temporary public art out of the plaza and to some other place. So, and I think buses and things like that were mentioned. But it also gives us an opportunity to maybe go out into the neighborhoods to do something with the temporary public art. Wouldn't have to be a lot of money. We got parks and different things that we can do at. I know one of the micro grants, or a couple of micro grants, were doing something in the parks. So, there's that possibility as well. So any other comments or questions about this? And I'm not sure what kind of direction we want to give staff to go with this. Do we want to look at murals or a temporary art piece in the plaza, and also the artist in residency part as well, I think is a really good idea. Anything, anybody?
I get the sense that what we want to give the staff is really a sense of flexibility. So even the sort of the mural concept, I think what we were thinking about is providing an infrastructure so that it's easy for artists to be able to leverage the location and the infrastructure to put up two-dimensional artwork if that is the artwork of choice. But in terms of the other areas, like what Nia was saying about buses or me saying about websites, we're really just trying to provide vehicles where we can extend the artwork from beyond King Plaza. So maybe geographically, the physical presence is in King Plaza, but maybe we can have additional representations of it on buses, or like replicas of it on buses, or on the website, so that it sort of it reverberates beyond the King Plaza for those that are not physically present on King Plaza, but other physical sort of extensions of the King Plaza or the seat of Palo Alto, sort of civic representation is extended beyond King Plaza. I think that is sort of what we're trying to facilitate in terms of just giving staff the ability to cherry pick or sort of to expand what they're thinking and expand their options.
Thank you, Cynthia. Anybody else? Lauren?
I really like that because then budget wise too, we're focused really on the exhibit, the temporary artwork, possibly produced by an artist in residency, focused on the diversity of Palo Alto and the racial equity, cultural equity, social equity of Palo Alto on King Plaza. One project, and then we expand it using different media sources. But that way we're not trying to run two programs, the temporary art program and this new project. We can really focus and focus our finances too. So thank you for articulating that so well.
I agree with Lauren and Cinia, and I was going to say that I think there is a possibility that ultimately the two types of projects, the racial equity and also just our normal temporary, could collide and will collide at some point, where I think, and we've already actually done that in many cases. I think we have had a lot of art that has been very special in terms of discussing current events and discussing issues. And I think kudos to everybody, all of us who have been on panels, and to Lisa, Nadia, and Kristen, and everybody who's helped us find ideas and make things reality. And I think it's something that, even just using that, our knowledge and our wisdom, and just when we are thinking about temporary works of art, that they do address issues like that, and encourage people who do, artists who do submit proposals, to think about those things, like what is the vision, or why is it relatable? I'm going to use that expression. So I think we're already on the right track. And then with the budget aspect too, I was just thinking, do we have, I'm going to say, do we have a time frame? Because I don't want to say yes or no, but to the point where we might be doing too many things. And, when should we, is there a point, or should we just kind of keep moving, or we'll have to say, you know what, we can't do this. The staff doesn't have the capability of the time. And so, just to think about that too. And because it might help us make better decisions, whatever that may be, in the next couple of months too. So.
Okay, thank you, Nia. And we don't want to throw anything else on Elisa's plate. Lisa and Nadia to give them even more stuff to do. I think the one word I heard, which I like, is flexibility. To have the flexibility to do anything in that plaza, whether it be mural or some other type of work. And I also like that maybe the temporary art project in the plaza maybe stops now. And as Nia was saying, there might be some collision there of things that are going on. So I think what we're looking at is something in the plaza, leave it up to the artist and give them the flexibility to do what they want. And we do have the ability to put a mural up. If it's some temporary piece, we may have to think about maybe some sort of a platform or something for that artwork to be displayed in the plaza. So that, and then the artist in residency. I think that's the direction that what I heard tonight, I think that's the direction that we want to go in with this equity piece. Anything else? Okay, thank you all. It's a very good discussion tonight. Very thoughtful, good input, and I think now that staff has got a direction to go in, and we can explore that further in our next meeting. Okay, any announcements? And then we do have a public letter attachment, so please read that. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for attending tonight, and we look forward for you to attend any future meetings you can.
Thanks for including me.
Thank you. And Kristen, thank you very much for attending tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure.
All right, next meeting is February 18th. So it'll be right after Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's, everyone. A belated Happy New Year. Thank you all for attending, and the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair Ben Manyashi. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Happy New Year.
Elise,
Happy
can I talk to you for a
inauguration.
second? Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.